two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
We welcome you to hour number 2 live right here on this Tuesday on the Early Line on SportsGrid and all across the Spiz Grizz network. That is Joe Ranieri. I am Ben Stevens. In this second hour, a ton of NFL talk because, Joe, there's only 5 weeks remaining in this National Football League regular season. Playoff outlooks for teams, where things stand, of course, as it is at this stage of the NFL season, just 2 days away from a Thursday night football game in a marquee matchup, a divisional duel, but not a short week for two clubs that played on Turkey Day, a full week of rest. We'll look at that. We'll talk some college football into conference championship weekend that begins on Friday. So much to get to here in this second hour that starts with some news and notes around the National Football League.
Yeah, it got a little something for everyone this week here, Ben, as we begin the transition from college football into our very first playoff, into the NFL playoffs. March Madness will be here before you know it, Ben. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, absolutely so, Joe. Feast week now in the books. We've got some conference toasts tonight in Big Ten country. We'll talk to John Rothstein a little bit later in our third and final hour. But, Joe, some NFL news and notes begins with some breaking news around the National Football League. Within the last 5 minutes, word passed down from the NFL League office that Houston's linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair, of course, who was ejected on Sunday in Jacksonville for the dirty hit on the sliding Trevor Lawrence, has been suspended for 3 games. He was ejected on Sunday in Duval County late in the opening half. Tack on a 3-game suspension as well. To me, it feels fitting. The punishment matches the crime. Here were some strong words, though, from NFL Vice President of Football Operations, John Runyon. Quote, "Your lack of sportsmanship and respect for the game of football and all those who play, coach, and enjoy watching it is troubling and does not reflect the core values of the NFL." End quote. A severe discipline and worthy, in my opinion, to Azeez Al-Shaair of Houston, suspended now for 3 games.
It just totally unnecessary, uncalled for. You never know what's going on with people, Ben, but it just There was absolutely no need for it. And it's not like this was a new rule implemented, right? I mean, we have been playing in the NFL now with guys knowing a sliding quarterback is no go. It just didn't matter for him. And unfortunately, hopefully, Trevor Lawrence will be okay moving forward with no lingering issues, but just totally unnecessary, in an NFL that hasn't existed like that in what, Ben? Over a decade? What are you doing, man? Unreal.
Yeah, and Joe, there was some debate, of course, between both sides that DeMeco Ryans was speaking about quarterbacks sliding late, and obviously some conjecture from some idiots on social media that have never played a down of football in their life, saying it's on the quarterback. He has to slide earlier. It's football. What do you want Al-Shaair to do? Look at the photos. We have showed the photos. Look at the actual video of the play. Trevor Lawrence begins his slide about 4 yards before contact is made. And even if Al-Shaair does hit him because he's playing in the heat of the game, that's one thing. Mistakes happen. It is an instant reactionary type of thing that in slow-mo replay often looks worse than it actually is in live action. Al-Shaair launches. He stops and launches as Trevor Lawrence's tush is nearly on the turf. Now, I will give Azeez Al-Shaair some credit. Yesterday morning on social media, issuing an apology and showing a little bit of remorse, Joe, for what happened. Of course, saying that was never his intention to act dirty, to lay a nasty hit onto Trevor Lawrence, but did sincerely apologize. It's really all you can ask from an individual in that situation. Now he will be suspended for 3 games by the National Football League.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, congratulations. How about just not doing it? But his team very much in first place there at Houston. But that's a team certainly on the defensive side in that secondary. That's a big loss for them for 3 games now to finish out the season. You basically let everybody in the locker room on that team down here. So not a good look for him at all.
Houston, one of those 6 teams that will be on the bye this weekend in Week 14. Again, they are 8-5. They are the only team in the AFC South with a winning record. The only team that's even close to that at 6-7 is Indianapolis, and the Texans beat the Colts in both of their regular season matchups, so have that tiebreaker advantage. For Jacksonville, it feels like a lost season. You hope Trevor Lawrence is feeling better. He is recovering. He also took to social media late on Sunday night to say that he was home, feeling pretty good. That, of course, is a very positive sign. The Jacksonville Jaguars, though, just a 2-10 football team. It feels only like a matter of time before a coaching change, maybe a front office change, is made in Duval County. So again, some breaking news this morning in the last 10 minutes. Houston's Azeez Al-Shaair, for the late and dirty hit on the sliding Trevor Lawrence, has been suspended by the NFL League office for 3 games. All right, Joe, elsewhere around the NFL, it's really difficult to see some great superstars start to look like they're aging. And although he is a kicker, he is a superstar kicker. That is Justin Tucker, one of the all-time greats to ever do it in the National Football League. Has not looked like himself this year. 2 costly field goal misses for Baltimore on Sunday against Philadelphia, and a missed extra point as well. Joe, this year, Justin Tucker, 19 of 27, a field goal percentage of 70.4%. Of kickers who have attempted at least 20 tries this year. It's second worst in the National Football League. And he's missed 2 extra points as well. It's almost unheard of. Here's his longtime head coach, John Harbaugh, speaking about the idea that Baltimore, also on the bye in Week 14, might welcome in some kickers for some tryouts during this open weekend.
I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that. I wouldn't want it to be a message or anything like that, other than the fact that you want to turn over every stone and make sure you've seen all the guys at every position. If there were guys out there that Randy looked at and our scouts looked at and said that was something that we should do, we would do it. But I don't think that's the answer. Knowing, from what I've talked to Randy and the scouts, knowing who's out there right now. It's not to say there aren't guys capable, but there's nobody nearly as good as Justin Tucker out there.
And I would still agree with John Harbaugh, Joe, when you look at where things stand. John Harbaugh, of course, a special teams coach, before, and that was a long time ago, nearly 2 decades, in the 17 years that he has been the Ravens head coach, you can tell anytime that Justin Tucker misses one, it like hurts him even more on the sideline as they flash to the quick cutaway. Justin Tucker, though, 5 of 7 from 40-plus, 4 of 8 from 50-plus this year. Joe, it felt like anything under 62 yards, Tucker was automatic for most of his NFL career. It's been anything but this season.
But again, Ben, if it's a do or die game this Sunday and you need a 48-yard field goal to win and advance, I'm rolling out who other than Justin Tucker exactly? Like, give me a break. It's what have you done for me lately? If he makes 2 winning field goals here over the next couple of weeks, all will be forgotten. What have you done for me lately? I would not trust anybody else in that locker room or with kicking than Tucker. He has earned it. He'll be there when it matters the most.
There's nobody else, as John Harbaugh alluded to, elsewhere on the market or maybe still in the sport that you would rather have than Justin Tucker when it means the most. There are some great kickers this year in the National Football League. Jake Bates for Detroit, Brendan Aubrey for Dallas, of course, Harrison Butker when he returns for Kansas City that have that pedigree. Justin Tucker does as well. He will remain the Ravens kicker for this season. And for Baltimore, it's about figuring things out, though, in terms of their playoff outlook and trying to turn the narrative of a lack of postseason success with Lamar Jackson as the quarterback. We'll talk some Super Bowl odds and more NFL notes next.
Sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Tuesday on the Early Line when 1 week in the National Football League comes to a close. A new week is only a few days away and on the horizon. So the news and notes for a Monday afternoon to set the stage entering Week 14. Joe, as we shared early on in the show, it's been the story of San Francisco's season. Injuries have marred this campaign. Christian McCaffrey, the PCL injury, placed on injured reserve. Jordan Mason on Sunday night, his backup all year, who had great success injured his ankle, both on the IR, and with only 5 weeks remaining and 4 weeks necessary on injured reserve, Joe, their seasons more than likely have come to a close. If you are in a fantasy league in your playoff hunt, try to add everything up for a waiver claim on Isaac Guerrero because he is now the starting back in San Francisco.
Yeah, listen, it's just been one of those years for the 49ers that the cluster injuries are proving to be too much, Ben. And, at some point you got to wonder, all right, if we're not getting Bosa back, if we're not getting, if we're having to roll guys in off the practice squad here, I'm a 5-win team. How many more losses before they sit Purdy or anybody else for that matter? It looks like a 6-win team at best to me, Ben. And they just got to chalk it up to being one of those seasons.
Yeah, and that really is the sad part of it, Joe. The expectations entering the year for the 49ers, of course, were incredibly high. They were the short favorites to win the NFC Championship. They had played in the NFC title game 4 of the previous 5 seasons, 2 Super Bowl appearances in the last half decade, of course, coming up short against Kansas City in both. They get the Bears at home this week. They're a 3.5-point favorite. As crazy as it might seem, Joe, their season is not fully lost if they can rattle off some wins in the jumbled mess that is the NFC West. But here is the issue. San Francisco has lost to every other team in the division. The Niners are just 1-3 in the NFC West. That is more damning in terms of their playoff life than even the 5-7 record, because they're not going to be a wild card team more than likely. Their best chance is winning the NFC West. They don't have any tiebreaker advantages the remainder of this season. More tough news for New Orleans. Taysom Hill out for the remainder of this year with a torn ACL. He was carted off the field late in the second half against the Rams on Sunday.
Yeah, unfortunate, but, very similar to the 49ers, right? New Orleans having to go through a lot this season, interim head coach, but yet because that division is so ridiculous, they find themselves just a couple of games on the outside looking in. So they, too, with a ton of injuries that maybe they can get a guy or two back, and who knows? I mean, anybody coming out of that division, Ben, will they even have a winning record? I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah, the Falcons right now, Joe, the favorites, because they have the head-to-head tiebreak over Tampa. But the Buccaneers are playing far better football at this moment than that of the Dirty Birds. Atlanta has lost 3 consecutive games. Of course, Darren Rizzi, the interim head man in New Orleans. We've got an interim head coach as well in New York. That's Jeff Ulbrich. We'll talk about the Jets in just a moment. And a new interim head coach in Thomas Brown in Chicago. Bears president and CEO Kevin Warren, along with general manager Ryan Poles, meeting with the media yesterday, really for the first time since the firing of Matt Eberflus following Thanksgiving. Kevin Warren saying the Bears head coaching job will be, quote, the most coveted. Now, we would expect many more firings at the end of the season. Dallas will probably be looking for a new head coach. Jacksonville, probably more of the same, and maybe some others that we don't anticipate as of right now. I would not say the Bears is the most coveted, despite the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, playing good football and a talented roster, because this is an organization that takes good things and makes them awful. That's Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're going to keep Ryan Pauls, the GM, who is also responsible for all of this. And you're going to keep him. So it just goes to show you there. Yes, you can have all the draft capital in the world. You can have great young players and a great young quarterback. You're going to screw this coaching hire up again, and you're going to ruin Caleb Williams and all the goodwill. So it's just rinse and repeat. Organizations tell you who they are, Ben. You just have to listen. You hear me, Jets?
Yep. And speaking of those Jets, Joe, a 3-9 football team, a disastrous season, a disastrous 2-year run with Aaron Rodgers that, at least for the moment, will continue. Jeff Ulbrich kind of molded over on Sunday following yet another disappointing loss out of nowhere as a favorite against, in their matchup on Sunday, the Seattle Seahawks. Ulbrich said he had to watch over the film to see what he would do with the quarterback spot moving forward. for the 41-year-old now, Aaron Rodgers, who turned 41 yesterday, I believe, or at some point this week. Aaron turns 41 yesterday. Ulbrich, though, telling reporters Aaron Rodgers still gives us the best chance to win football games. Newsflash, Jeff Ulbrich, I'm sure you know this. You're not trying to win football games anymore, but Aaron Rodgers remains the Jets' starting quarterback.
Because of that reason, he won't win any more football games. So that's perfect. You're good to go. And I think they said it. Another defensive player, right? Pick six with a giant man running 92 yards there. And I think he said it perfectly, didn't he? He said, "Hey, listen, man, we all know it. Aaron Rodgers don't want to get hit. He's not willing to stand in the pocket anymore. He's not willing to take those shots to make the pass and make the play. And there you go. So I would play him. You're guaranteed not to win another game."
3-9, the New York Jets. 3-9. They have guaranteed their 9th consecutive losing season, falling well under a 9.5 preseason win total. They were favorites to make the postseason. They will miss out on the playoffs for a 14th consecutive year. Have fun, next general manager in New York, trying to build up this organization once again, which frankly they have not done a good job of the last decade. Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, now Aaron Rodgers never have figured out that quarterback spot. The Super Bowl odds movement entering the final 5 weeks of this regular season in the MVP race. We'll break it down up next.
Sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, "Oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you."
Quarterly, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
"Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben." Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFC selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Tuesday on the Early Line at the end of 13 weeks in the National Football League regular season. Only 5 remain. It's in December. It's in the hunt season around the National Football League, where every game, if you are still alive in the playoff race, will impact your postseason life, either earning a spot in the playoffs, clinching a divisional championship, and thus your playoff seed line. Joe, let's look at some of the movement that we have seen around those Super Bowl odds, because after 13 weeks, a lot of changes. The Lions remain the favorites at plus 290. The Eagles see that price shortened by $1.50 as well after a marquee road victory in Baltimore on Sunday afternoon. But the biggest change comes from the AFC. Buffalo is the AFC title favorites for the first time this year. Somebody not named Kansas City stands atop the odds board in the AFC, and not just, of course, the AFC Championship. If the Bills are favored to win that conference crown, they would have a better price then to win a Lombardi trophy. Buffalo vaults in front of KC in those Super Bowl 59 odds. Baltimore moves back by $3 to a 10-1 price. 8-5 is the record for Baltimore. Those are the 5 best numbers around the NFL at this moment.
Yeah, and I love, and they're well-deserved here, Ben. I mean, the Bills are in the same class, I think, as the Eagles and the Lions, where those are the 3 most complete teams in the NFL right now, where they're playing all 3 facets really, really well. The Chiefs, again, unfortunately, they're winning by the skin of their teeth, and they're finding ways to win. My problem with the Chiefs is eventually that's going to regress, and you're not going to get every break in the world, right? It just happened again with the Raider game. At some point, the ball's going to bounce the other way, and I wouldn't want to be on the Chiefs when that happens. And the Ravens have shown you special teams issues, defensive issues. Yeah, no. I think those 4 teams are clearly heads and tails above everyone else on that list.
It feels to me as though the flock is like an unbalanced team you see in the NCAA tournament, where the Ken Pom numbers just don't match up. They're really good offensively, but they're bad on the defensive end, where you would think that being dominant on both sides of the football matters most in terms of being at the upper echelon and contending for that Lombardi trophy. It's really funny, Joe. A couple of points on the Chiefs, right? Last year, we did a similar thing. KC wasn't winning close games. They were losing them, losing games uncharacteristically. The offense did not look like it had the same spark, and yet when it mattered most, the Chiefs figured it out and won a second consecutive Super Bowl championship, their 3rd in 5 seasons. Does it feel different this year? I'm not necessarily sure that it does, because you have to give the Chiefs always the benefit of the doubt when it comes to playoff pedigree. They are the only team, really, when you look at the Super Bowl odds at this moment, with the Niners slide, that has proven it at this level, year in, year out. But because they are the only team that has proven it, that means we still have questions for teams like Buffalo and Baltimore and others when it comes to matching up against Kansas City in the AFC. For the Bills, it's been the story of this franchise. Great regular seasons, double-digit wins, AFC East title after title, but when it matters most, they falter, as they have for the last 3 years in the divisional round, 3 of the last 4 years losing to the team they just surpassed on the odds board in both the Super Bowl and AFC title markets, that being Kansas City. Now, as it pertains to the NFC, Detroit has never played in a Super Bowl. They have won NFL championships well before the merger or the Super Bowl era back in the late 1950s. The Eagles did stumble down the stretch last year, Joe, but Philly, of course, played in a Super Bowl just 2 seasons ago with a lot of the same cast and crew that remains in the city of brotherly love.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I think Philadelphia is another one of these teams that it's not pretty offensively, but it is certainly effective when you've got, Saquon Barkley in the conversation for MVP. You've got maybe close to 2,000 rushing yards. They can win games in January like the Bills can, like the Chiefs can. The question is, can the Lions win games like that in January?
They did get to the NFC Championship game a season ago, and, of course, a couple of questionable decisions from Dan Campbell. The Lions remain the favorite to be the 1 seed in the NFC. Still the same for KC in the AFC. Those are conference championships. It's conference championship weekend in college football next.
the sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Quarterly, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you was here on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It is conference championship weekend in college football. Only 9 FBS conferences now, so we only have 9 conference title games to break down for you. At the Power 4 level, something unique, perhaps intriguing, Joe, in this new landscape of college football. In all 4 Power Conference championship games, a newcomer, at least one newcomer, will play for a conference crown on Saturday. And that is a beautiful thing, indicative of what we are seeing here in this 2024 college football season. Of course, tonight we will get the 5th unveiling of the college football playoff rankings from the selection committee. And these are incredibly significant. Maybe not as important as Sunday following conference championship Saturday, but for those teams that will now be idle this weekend that are hoping to be in the 12-team college football playoff field and bracket, where they stand now more than likely should be where they stand on Sunday. Or if a team falters in a conference championship game, could they move up? Could their seed line be pushed down? All of that incredibly important now in the first year of a 12-team college football playoff format. Joe, it does feel, though, as both teams in the SEC championship game in Atlanta on Saturday will be in the college football playoff. And my charge to the committee would be that if you earn the right to contend for a conference championship in that title matchup, it should not harm your resume to falter in the game. We will see if the committee agrees. So let's go to Atlanta on Saturday afternoon. It's Georgia and Texas. The Longhorns in their first year in the SEC looking for a conference crown for a second consecutive season. Georgia played in the SEC championship game a season ago, came up short against Alabama. And you can see what the odds say right now, Germanary, that Texas is a slight favorite of only 2.5 points in the A. It was Texas midway through October, a home favorite in Austin. Georgia won that game outright, 30-15. Let's start there with the spread in the 2.5-point number in favor of UT. Germanary is the right side favorite to win an SEC championship on Saturday.
I got to think it is, Ben. It is extremely difficult to embarrass a team twice in a season here, especially ever since they won that game in Austin back in October, Ben. Boy, Georgia has regressed. They were lucky to win that game in 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech in rivalry week. They have not exactly impressed all that great since that. You thought maybe that Texas win was what was going to, all right, Georgia's going to kick it into gear. But no, that's not been the case. However, we have seen Texas, especially their defense, giving up barely 12 points per game, keeping teams at bay. Yeah, plus Kirby Smart, only 2-4 straight up in the SEC championship games. They're 3-9 against the spread this season. They have not been money makers at all for teams this year. I think Georgia won round one. I definitely think Texas is the right side favorite, and it would not shock me if they get it done in what likely will be a lower scoring game here.
Georgia has only been an underdog twice in the better part of the last 4 now college football seasons. Way back to begin the 2021 campaign in a top 5 tilt against Clemson to start off that season. UGA won outright. And then about a month and a half ago in Austin against Texas, Georgia won that game outright by 15, 30-15. Joe, my charge for Georgia that day was to display that they are an elite defense once again, because entering the matchup, it was the Longhorns, the elite defensive team. And we have seen that carry over for Texas week over week. Georgia, from that Texas game, has improved so drastically defensively up until the Georgia Tech game that you do become a little bit scared. But you know that Kirby Smart will have his dogs composed and ready. Total was in the low 50s in Austin back in the middle of October. Stayed under 49.5 is that number here. I also lean to the fact that if Georgia is going to contend for this SEC crown, the game stays under. But we shall see. Texas has not been a great cover team either against new conference opponents. And if you want to include Texas A&M in that, I would understand. They covered in the Red River rivalry against Oklahoma. The only cover against a new conference opponent, because they used to play A&M all the time as Big 12 and Southwest Conference mates, was against Florida with their third-string quarterback in Aiden Warner. And to your point, Joe, Georgia has only covered in 3 games this year, but all 3 of their ranked victories against teams that currently rank inside the top 12 of the college football playoff rankings. That being Clemson in the opener, Tennessee, and of course the Texas game outright as an underdog. So that's 3:30 p.m. Eastern time in Atlanta, Georgia, 4 p.m. Eastern time or so. Let's get to a big ball game in Indianapolis on Saturday evening. It is the number 1 team in the nation, Oregon, taking on Penn State, who will be a top 5 team after the college football playoff rankings tonight, where the Nittany Lions now remain at number 4 in the CFP top 25, 3 in the AP poll. 3.5-point spread, Joe, in favor of the Ducks. A total also sub 50 by the hook at 49.5. This was not the Big Ten championship game that we expected entering the regular season finale on Saturday. Ohio State, as a 3-touchdown favorite against Michigan, simply needed to win the football game outright at home. Of course, the Maize and Blue pulled off that monumental upset. So Penn State takes care of Maryland, winning 44-7. The Nittany Lions will now play in the Big Ten title game. And here is Penn State once again, booked as an underdog, not expected to win a football game outright against the top team in the country. It's only a 3.5-point spread, Joe. How competitive does Saturday night look for a Big Ten title on the line?
Listen, everybody knows James Franklin at Penn State. He's 1-13 against top 5 teams. His only win actually came back in 2016 against Ohio State. The Nittany Lions are 0-5 straight up and 1-4 against the number as an underdog since 2022 here, Ben. Franklin, however, he's 1-0 in conference title games. Dan Lanning lost last year to Washington in the conference title game. And I think styles make fights here, right? If you're going to beat Oregon, you don't want to track meet. to run the ball. You want to control the tempo. You want that Ducks offense off the field for as much as possible here. Both these defenses, top 10 scoring defenses, they combine to only surrender 30.2 points per game here, Ben. If Penn State is going to win this game and cover this, then this game is going woefully under 49.5 points. This could very well be a rock fight if Penn State wins this.
Absolutely so, Joe. And what's been so interesting for Oregon, 5 games this year for the Ducks booked as less than a 3-touchdown favorite. 4 of the 5, including last week against Washington, the win over Ohio State, have gone over. The only under was when Oregon survived in Camp Randall against Wisconsin in their second-to-last game of the regular season. Again, we know the record for James Franklin against top 10 foes, against top 5 teams. It is atrocious. Penn State, as Joe alluded to, has been an underdog only 5 times in the last 3 college football seasons since the start of 2022. All 5 games, 3 times against the Buckeyes, twice against the Wolverines. They have lost outright with just a simple 1 cover. The Ducks, to me, are the most balanced team in college football right now. And where Oregon struggled early in the year, defensively, they have made up a ton of ground in the last 2 months. I bet Oregon as soon as the line came out, because Penn State falters in these big spots. I do think the Ducks win this game, but I don't think it's a blowout. I think it will be competitive in Indianapolis. The other 2 Power 4 title games next.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the Early Line as we enter Conference Championship Week around college football. A preview of the SEC and Big Ten title games are now through. Let's get to the ACC and the Big 12. Again, a story around these Power 4 Conference Championship games. A newcomer in the league will play in all of the 4. And maybe SMU is new to the ACC. But SMU, Joe, is not new to winning conference championships, as they did a season ago in the American. They were perfect. 9-0 after the conference championship victory for Rhett Lashley and the Stangs. This year they enter the ACC title game in Charlotte on Saturday night. Perfect as well at 8-0. Clemson sending a bunch of bouquets and thank you cards to Syracuse, New York, and Fran Brown, because after the Orange upset Miami on Saturday, Clemson in to the ACC title matchup despite losing its regular season finale at home to South Carolina. That, of course, a non-conference game. 2.5-point spread, Joe, in favor of SMU. For whatever weird reason, here in New York, it took forever to get this line available on the FanDuel Sportsbook, but once it came up, I have already made my wager. Mustangs minus 2.5. The total stands at 55 and a hook. What do you break down in terms of the ACC championship game on Saturday night in Charlotte?
Well, what I have is that this game in no way, shape, or form is going to hit the under. This is an over or pass for me. And, I mean, when you said it, Rhett Lashley versus Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator for Clemson, two of the fastest-paced offenses who want to run as many plays as humanly possible, Ben, going at one another with two suspect defenses, to say the least. We already know Cade Klubnik and Phil Maffa should absolutely have plenty of success in this game, especially with the big explosive plays. We have seen it. SMU, by the way, not exactly the greatest secondary, so I do believe that Klubnik will have big-time throws down the field. I mean, both these teams average about 23, 24 seconds per play, Ben. That is going to give us plenty enough possessions and opportunities to go flying over this. I think this game, with both teams landing in the 30s, I don't see any way that this thing lands in the 40s. So I'm banking on an over here. I think this is going to be a fun one. I think it's going to be a wild shootout. Not the elite Clemson defenses of years past, but that offensive coordinator, I mean, Garrett Riley versus Rhett Lashley should be one that you just make the popcorn, sit back, Ben, and enjoy it because fireworks are coming here.
And, Joe, I think what you brought up there about Clemson's defense, the last few years it's been the offensive woes in Clemson, South Carolina, that has held back the Tigers, looking for just their second ACC championship in the last 4 seasons when they had won 6 consecutive through the 2020 college football campaign. This Clemson Tigers defense, as was on display on Saturday against South Carolina and Lenora Sellers, has been struggling mightily to contain the run. In fact, when you look at Clemson right now, with the 4th worst rushing defense in the ACC, they're giving up more than 150 yards per game, even entering last week, nearing 140 yards per game before getting thrashed by Lenora Sellers. That is the worst that Clemson's rushing defense has been in nearly a decade, since 2016. But SMU, last year and this year, one of the best rushing defenses in the sport, one of a few right now, the Stangs allowing less than 100 yards per game at 95.8. I think it's a big game for Brashard Smith, the talented running back for SMU, and their quarterback, Kevin Jennings, can scoot as well. I think this is a game, Joe, that when you look at SMU, you look at the Stangs in conference action. Again, 9-0, perfect last year in the American. 8-0, perfect so far this season in the ACC. They have also been a cover machine in the 17 conference games they have played in the last 2 years. 12-5 against the spread, which is not something we actually anticipated for this SMU team. With all the conference realignment we saw entering 2024, the Stangs were the only team elevating up a level from a group of 5 conference to a power conference, and they have not skipped a beat. So SMU, the newcomer in the ACC championship. Arizona State, the newcomer in the Big 12 title game. Again, Joe, as soon as the line opened on Saturday night, after Kenny Dillingham and the Sun Devils booked their ticket in Iowa State courtesy of a BYU win and a Cyclones win over K-State punched theirs, I bet ASU right away. It was a pick'em on the money line. It is now 2.5 points in favor of one of the best cover teams in the country this year. Arizona State is 10-2 straight up. Arizona State is covered in all 10 victories. How do you see the Big 12 title game in Arlington early on Saturday?
Under for me in this one here, Ben. I mean, Iowa State has the best scoring defense in the Big 12, giving up, 19 points per game, while Arizona State isn't that far behind, only averaging 21.5 points given up. So both these defenses are going to show up here. And if Matt Campbell, and we know Matt Campbell coach teams are underdogs, the under is 40, 21, and 1, Ben, in those games with Matt Campbell. I think the Cyclones are awesome against the pass. They only allow 156 yards a game. Third fewest nationally, by the way. They do get beat up by the run, and Scatterbo helps, of course, Arizona State control the clock, and that usually leads to his teams to having a good shot at winning games late. I don't see how we get to 50 points in this one. I think the defenses and the running games are what it's going to be all about in this one.
And that will be the test for the Cyclones. Arizona State does allow some yardage through the air. Rocco Becht will be really good, or has to be really good, with Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins on the outside. To me, though, Joe, this is a tough matchup for Iowa State. When you think of the Clones and Matt Campbell, you think of physicality, great defenses. Not this year. Through the air, sure. But the biggest issue is trying to contain your favorite running back's favorite running back, and that's Cam Scatterbo. 110 and a hook. His rushing yards prop. Iowa State allows more than $173 this year. The Group of Five conference tilt next.
Sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid. It's Conference Championship Week in college football. Let's take that Group of Five focus right now for the Conference Championship games in our Group of Five leagues. In Ranieri on Friday night, we've got a ton of these games in action. Mountain West Championship game that more than likely will determine who is one of those five automatic bids to the college football playoff in the five highest-ranked conference champs. and maybe not just the 5th highest ranked conference champ, but if Boise wins, is Boise going to earn an opening round bye? It's the Broncos and the Running Rebs of UNLV once again, 3.5-point number in favor of Boise State. In Jacksonville State in Western Kentucky, Conference USA Championship game where the Gamecocks of Jack State with Rich Rodriguez have been great in their second year of FBS football. I bet on the Hilltoppers a while ago to be that conference champion in CUSA and Tyson Helton. A number not looking all that great right now as they are the underdog. In the American on Friday as well is Army and Tulane. And Joe, entering last weekend, entering Thanksgiving, this game could have very well factored in to the college football playoff race because Tulane was ranked highly in the top 20. Had they just beaten Memphis as a 2-touchdown home favorite in New Orleans, they might have contended for that top group of 5 spot as one of those 5 highest ranked conference champs. They got upset by double digits as a 2-touchdown favorite. Now a 5.5-point favorite against Army. Let's start with the triple header on Friday night before we get to the MAC title game and what we will see in the Sun Belt title game as well on Saturday. When you look at those grouping of 3 games, what do you like the most?
Yeah, so I think the Tulane-Army game is fascinating, especially with Army getting that many points. I mean, listen, Tulane laid an egg against Memphis, but I think the more concerning thing, Ben, is how they laid an egg. They allowed Memphis to rack up 242 yards on the ground. And they, every time they have faced really good rushing teams this year here, Ben, it has not been good. And now they're taking on a team that holds onto the ball for nearly 36 minutes a game, who converted, 10 of 16, I think. Memphis converted 10 of 16 on third downs. Army is top 5 in third down conversion rates. They are also converting fourth downs at a 75% clip, which is just going to put Tulane in a terrible spot, much like they were against Memphis here. I think that number is high. You're giving Army, I think, not enough credit here. I do like Summerall, who, of course, was with Troy and knows a little something about these conference games. But my goodness, I mean, that's a big number to be giving Army, who profiles as a team that has given you problems all year long, Tulane, and that's the issue here. I don't know how Tulane gets off the field with this Army team, so I'd look to play Army early and maybe look for an opportunity to get Tulane at a better number in game.
Yeah, Tulane, Joe, when you look at their defense this year, elite for most of the season. They're only allowing 123.5 rushing yards per game. Of course, that is of the utmost importance when you take on the Cadets and Bryson Daly and Kanye Udo and everything that Jeff Munkin will try to run out there. However, they gave up 177 yards to Memphis. So entering that game, think of the average, 123.5. They allowed 177 yards to Mario Anderson, more than 2 Bills, as you shared, against the Tigers. That is concerning. I would look at a Bryson Daly prop on Friday night. And this game will be played, by the way, at Mitchie Stadium. Army has home field advantage in the American Championship game. Of course, UNLV and Boise State. Ashton Genty's number 170 and a hook. These two teams met earlier this year on a Friday night. It was the Broncos winning in Las Vegas. And also keep an eye on what this Jacksonville State team can do. One of the best scoring offenses in the country. They're more on the ground. The Hilltoppers through the air. The 2 games on Saturday, Joe. And you look at that MAC championship game between Ohio and Miami of Ohio. The Red Hawks won it last year under Chuck Martin. Played a very difficult non-conference schedule. Have been great in MAC ball. I love me some Louisiana and Marshall in that Sun Belt title game on Saturday. Quickly here, Joe. I think we see some points in that matchup.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I mean, great win against JMU there to put themselves in this spot here, Ben. It's kind of hard not to like Marshall in that game. Call me crazy. I think it's going to be one of the more entertaining games of the weekend.
They won 6 straight, their final 2 as an underdog outright to get to the Sun Belt title game. Hour 3 next.